Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Full Spectrum D&D podcast. My name is Trey.
And I am Rungren.
We've got some good stuff to talk about tonight. You got some news to my attention. I was prepared to talk about Volos tonight. When I came through the door, you said, hey.
Yeah, it was new news. I found it out today. Had some, just kind of getting some ideas for tonight, watching different things. And yeah, there was a news release from Wizards, Hasbro, on D&D, and they're talking about their plan forward. There's a few things actually. One of the biggest was Drizzt. Seems like Benedict Cumberbatch is doing the Drizzt novels.
Yeah,
reading those through, and that's kind of that's a very classic D&D. I think now that's in Forgotten Realms. That's
probably the most well-known character currently in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
especially because of like the Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale games.
Yes. Now, what got that? I thought that was cool. But what really got me is they said this year, read it correctly, that they're going to release 2 new classic campaign settings.
Yeah.
And that kind of blew my mind. I mean, that was exciting. How long have we griped and just private discussions, talking around the table about we need D&D DM? Exactly, right? All the player stuff is cool, but the DMs, all we're getting is a smattering of stuff.
Yeah.
In there. Now, this does come on the back of that registered on that, which is a lot of stuff coming on with that because it's the 50th year anniversary of D&D. And from an economic standpoint, 2019, 2020, great for Wizards.
Absolutely.
100%. More money than they've ever made, and I don't see why that would stop this year. But they said, registered-wise, they had more DMs than ever.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that was maybe a little bit of the when they were looking back at their financials and looking at their registration, because Hasbro had its first quarter financial report.
Right.
So it kind of lays all this stuff out and, hey, look. And the spread of players was great and everything, but it seems like somewhere they got the message that we need some DM stuff.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, they offer 2 campaign worlds.
That's really exciting. I have pulled up the list of the ones that we both currently have in 5e.
Yeah.
And of all of the previous ones that have a possibility to come back.
Right.
And so we were going to talk about Volos tonight. We'll get back to Volos at some point.
Sure.
But when Rungren mentioned this, I said, hey, we can have a whole discussion just on this.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited about it, and I want to pick your brain a little bit for the ideas that you might come up with from it as well.
Well, full disclosure, we are almost 100% on what one of these are going to be.
Right.
Right. As we kind of just, talking about this news because finally.
Yeah, it has to be one of these.
Right.
This one specific.
Yeah, not the first, we don't know which one it is, and that world is Dragonlance.
Yeah.
And so we're very strong in that. And so there's a wide discussion on what the other one would be.
Right. Because there's a lot of options.
I know. And we talked about a few, kicked around our ideas of why this one, maybe this one, just really, really briefly. But then you pulled up the actual list of like classic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff we don't have. We didn't think of.
So currently in 5e D&D, we have Forgotten Realms.
Yes.
We have Eberron, which Eberron just has the one book. There's not a lot of information on Eberron in there. Mostly if you as a DM go, hey, I want to play in Eberron,
yes,
you're going to have to look up some stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to pull some stuff up from previous editions because the stuff on Eberron is not complete, let's say.
Yeah.
It's more of just, hey, here's some ideas from Eberron that are really cool.
Well, have you noticed? Them into Realms. Have you noticed the stuff we get for explanations as DM is a blurb?
Yeah.
Even the planes of existence. Now, I understand they can't put too much in the DM's guide.
Right.
But everything you get as a DM kind of explaining stuff is a blurb.
Right. And I think that they did a little bit better with Theros. We talked about that last week. Mm-hmm. Theros at least has more breakdown of the gods and adventures. Still not a lot of information on the actual world. You kind of are going to have to make your own settlements and stuff like that.
Yes.
But the big information's there.
Right.
The other two are Ravnica, which Ravnica doesn't have a lot either.
No, and I'm a little...
bones.
And look, you can call me out for being a purist or whatever. It just doesn't fit. I love Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
I don't play anymore, but there was a time in, late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
Where the Power and I was still a thing, that I played. I love Magic the Gathering. And the idea of the world, I don't know. I wasn't very fond of that. But we got some cool stuff out of it.
We did. We absolutely did.
I think putting Counterspell in
yeah.
was actually a really cool thing.
I would even argue that maybe we don't call Ravnica a setting, even though it technically is, because most of what we got was just additional things for other settings.
I think what Ravnica, what that is y'all been playing Magic the Gathering for a long time?
Yeah.
Y'all know
we play in that world now.
Yeah, the people that probably were attracted to that, or I would think was people that were kept up with the game.
Right. Absolutely.
And they knew the lore. So in something like that, maybe they didn't need as much. I mean, I think that was a little bit defensible.
Yeah, I agree.
On that.
I agree. The other one is Exandria, which we really haven't done a lot of talking about here on the channel.
Yeah.
This is the Critical Role world.
Yes. And yeah, I kind of have it's awesome. I don't want to take anything away from it.
I'm glad that Matt Mercer is letting people use it.
Yeah, but and the reason why I don't want to talk about it is that it's Matt Mercer's baby.
It is.
It's his world.
And it's not done yet.
Well, it's not done. Yeah.
He's always adding more things to it, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it means that if I, as a DM, want to use that world,
yeah,
hey, that's a little bit more difficult. He's given don't get me wrong, he's given a really good setting for it.
Absolutely.
And you can make it work, especially if you use the stuff from their first campaign, that area.
Yeah.
All that stuff is done.
Yes.
Right? But the world is changing weekly.
Right.
As they play.
Yeah.
And so it would be really weird for me as a DM if I was running in that world and my players want to go somewhere that the Critical Role campaign is going right now.
Yeah.
And then Matt Mercer makes a clarification on the world because it's his world.
Yeah.
And it goes against what I was trying to do. I think that in 2 or 3 years, the Exandria setting is going to be incredible.
I know, but see, I would still feel awkward playing it. Because Matt Mercer's not a creator; he's a fellow DM,
right?
And his style is amazing, and I credit him so much with and the credit he has with bringing this to light and showing people what it can be.
Yeah, I would dare say that Matt Mercer and his group are the Critical Role are the reason that a lot of people play, and one of the biggest reasons why D&D was so successful last year.
But even with that, and even though I understand that you could consider that a professional setting,
right?
I would still feel awkward playing. I would,
yeah.
And that's just me because that's not my world,
right?
That's another DM created it.
Well, and I think there's also there's a weird divide there too. Of Matt Mercer can't reveal everything about the setting because then his players would know.
Yeah.
So he has to keep some things secret,
right? Which
means that the setting isn't. It's like we said, it's not done yet. You know,
it's this growing thing. I mean, he's nursing it through.
Yeah,
it's like I said, it's his baby.
Yeah.
So I don't. Please buy it.
Yes,
please support them.
Well, and it's a great book too. There's some really good other stuff in there.
Right.
The variants for rules that he has. The variant magic items rule is actually a really cool rule, and I like it a lot.
Yeah. Which experienced DMs going, okay, I think I can make this work a little bit better.
Right.
And have the flexibility to do that.
There's some really cool stuff that he does with bonus actions with spells too that are in that book. Again, absolutely you should get that book, but I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I won't run this world until he says it's done. And as far as I know, it's not ever going to be done.
Yeah.
But I say that. If Matt Mercer himself called me and said, hey, Trey, I want you to run a campaign in my world, I'm not going to say no.
Well, no, but that for me, that would be almost what it would take for me to run in that world.
Yeah.
It's talking to him.
Well, and it's like you and I made a world,
it's the same way with because I know he's the big name we go to, but Matthew Colville.
Yeah, Matt Colville's world.
It's the same thing for me.
We talked about Arcadum last week.
Yeah.
The DM that I've been talking about from Twitch, his world, Verum, I'd feel really weird running in his world.
Yes.
But we made a world over the last series of podcasts.
Yeah.
But the world that we made isn't either of our babies.
No.
It's a project that we started.
It is. And it's very, very bare bones.
Right. And if we had the time or if it was our jobs, much like the wizards.
Yes.
When it comes to making things.
Yes.
Not wizards the class or the group of people, wizards the company. If we had that time and money to sit down and just flesh it out and make it an official setting, it would be it'd be one thing, but that's not our baby.
Right.
If like the homebrew world that I made first, that I still keep close to my chest, I would never. If somebody needed it, I'd give it to them, but I wouldn't be like, hey, here's my world, go play in it.
Yeah.
It would be like, well, that's special to me.
Yes, exactly.
So,
exactly.
But go ahead.
Well, what I was going to ask is, we've got for that second one.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of options. Now, if we take that one of these is going to be Dragonlance.
Right.
Which I don't see why they would hold it in their pocket for a later date.
Yeah.
Especially with the first of the trilogies coming out.
Yeah,
The new trilogy, excuse me.
Dragonlance is for sure a lock in my mind.
So we can talk maybe a little bit about that, or you want to take that now, or you want to try to talk about what it may be?
I think we should go ahead and do Dragonlance now, because we're positive it's going to be Dragonlance.
Okay.
So if it's Dragonlance, we're getting the setting.
Yeah.
Do you think we're getting the setting in the start of those books, or do you think we're getting the setting after the first arc? Because I think it's going to be after the first arc.
We may be getting the setting, after the first, but we may be getting the setting that's coming out now, the new trilogy.
Could be.
I mean, that wouldn't be
a good way to tie it in.
Yeah, and then you have you're handing, like I said, you're handing both things out at the same time.
Yeah.
Though, if they go back and start at the beginning, well, now you have kind of even a better form and a more standard line, what you have with Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
All the campaigns written are for Forgotten Realms, right?
Right.
So if you have the source book and you're starting it way back at the beginning, then you have campaigns for years.
Yeah, you're set, basically.
I could understand, but I would understand a business decision to say, okay, well, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
We're having a new trilogy. We really want to put the new characters. But then again, for longevity's sake, if you start at the beginning, not only you put interest back on those first books, when you release the update, the second release of it, that's the second, set in the second, after the first, into the second trilogy.
Yeah.
And then now you would have the third one coming up later.
Yeah. You can keep releasing those.
I think so. So I'm hoping they go back.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that would be really nice. What do you think we're getting additional wise? We're getting we'll get a new race for sure in Kinder, right?
Right.
But do you think we'll get maybe a variant Dragonborn?
I think they're good.
Draconian rules?
I think so. Because, I would have to double check, but there's not much I think you'd have to do to make the Draconians.
Right.
Obviously you could homebrew them, right?
Yeah.
But with the Dragonborn there, you limit some things and then you make them explode at the end.
Yeah, it just seems like a good slot in there.
Yeah, I think they've already got a archetype there.
So, especially because Ravnica did the more rat-like Dragonborn, right?
Yes.
So we already have precedence for that. I don't think there are really any other races that we would get. The elves in Dragonlance aren't that different. They're a little different, but they're not.
See,
that
here's
different.
the thing. We should get a couple of races, and we should get the Kinder.
Yeah.
Right, and then on the other side of it, the enemy, you get the Draconians, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a new one on each side there.
Yeah.
However you're going to play it.
I think that's it for races from Dragonlance.
But see, here's the thing, because in 5e, Forgotten Realms is wild.
Yeah.
Right? You've got so many different classes, and even so, even like, hey, there's tieflings.
Yeah.
For example, they're actually supposed to be kind of rare in the Forgotten Realms world, but you can make a world with them everywhere.
Right.
In the Dragonlance, and I may be wrong. There's people that love and know these novels.
Yeah, better than either one of us do.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if you say, are you going to say, hey, this is a Dragonlance world.
Right.
So technically, there's not going to be a warlock.
Yeah.
Or a sorcerer.
Right.
And to try to line it out with those.
You get a little bit of sorcerer in the second arc, the War on Souls arc, but the first arc has nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think an actual setting in Dragonlance would be a lot more limited. You're going to have your elves, you're going to have your humans, you're going to have your Kinder. I don't think Dragonlance has dwarves, does it? It's been a while. Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I remember the characters I remember, which maybe this is just me, are the humans and the elves and the Kinder.
Yeah.
And the Minotaurs.
Right.
So,
which are completely different than Forgotten Realms Minotaurs.
Right. So they're variant Minotaur maybe as well.
Yeah, I think that would be and I'm sure if we dig down, there's going to be other things.
It's been a while since I've read those books.
I'll do that. Well, I don't know. What I'm hoping they don't do is do something like retcon, like, oh, no. Raceland was a sorcerer, or Raceland was a warlock the whole time.
Yeah.
He looked like a wizard.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he had worked for that power.
Yeah, he was definitely a wizard.
So I don't know.
What do you think we're going to get anything? Can you think of anything from Dragonlance feat-wise or?
Well, the lance is going to be something that's going to have to be. Dragon riding is going to, there's going to have to be some feats there. What else will we get? I mean, those are going to be, especially if you're going back to the early story.
We'd get some really good bosses in the form of those dragons.
Well, come on. Dragonlance is Tiamat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's, yeah.
It's not the Tiamat from Forgotten Realms.
No.
It's a different Tiamat.
Right.
Which would make it really interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's also Takshish, right?
Well, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's Tiamat.
Right.
But yes.
We've got, and then each of the other dragons are very unique. So I think that could make for some really interesting adventures made up.
Well, there's, well, see, that's the thing, in Forgotten Realms, it's kind of, it's grim. It's supposed to be, the world is supposed to be. I mean, we're supposed to be kind of grim. It's tough. You're out adventuring usually because, it's the only life you can make it.
Right.
Only way you can make it. And that's kind of the way it was set up. And Dragonlance is, this high fantasy.
Yeah.
There's dragons everywhere. You go talk to the dragon,
Yeah.
Dragons, there's dragon riders.
Right.
Wielding the Dragonlance. Man, I just realized, I think one thing, if it comes out right, one thing I'm going to be excited for is that's going to be a perfect example to go, okay, do you want to know how to take the D&D rules and make your own world?
Yeah.
Here's an outline for it. Look what they did. And, people might think I was making fun of Takeshi and Tiamat being the same. But no, that's
they're one-to-one.
Yeah. But that's using
what
you have in D&D and making a great story.
Yeah.
Do it. I can't think of anything else.
That's really all I have for Dragonlance, honestly.
And it's going to be, but see, that's the thing with Dragonlance, right? It's the setting.
Yeah.
It's the world. It's the map. It's the way things are. It's the hierarchy that goes on there. People work together that aren't supposed to work together.
Yeah.
There's not, I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's different from what you're getting with Forgotten Realms and through the modules you're handed for that.
Absolutely. I feel like we do need to circle back to Kinder real quick.
Okay.
Kinder are a little bit different from a halfling, right? It's not going to be just a one-to-one switch. It's not going to be a halfling variant.
Yeah. No.
Kinder probably won't get lucky.
No.
I think instead Kinder will have a natural bonus to sleight of hand.
Oh, yeah.
Proficient with sleight of hand just for being a Kinder.
Yes. Maybe even expertise.
Yeah, maybe. A Kinder rogue is going to be a problem.
Yeah. They always have been.
Yes.
And, And honestly, if you play a Kinder, you go rogue most of the time.
You're a sticky-fingered little creature. That's your thing.
I would love to see a feat for the Kinder with the hoopak.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
I like that weapon. But yeah, it's not. You don't have to make it deadly or anything.
Right.
Just give me something cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Let me use a sling after I stab somebody with a pointy end. Just one.
Yeah.
It's a bonus attack. Something.
Yeah, I think Kinder will be really fun, and I know a couple people that would be chomping at the bit to play Kinders.
Yes. Yeah. So. Absolutely.
Well, if we think about more stuff with Dragonlance, we can always come back to it.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a setting. You're not going to get. You said it's going to be a little more. It should be a little more limited,
right?
If you're actually going to play in the Dragonlance world, it should be a little more limited.
Absolutely.
And it's the setting that makes Dragonlance work.
That's true. Absolutely.
But what the other one will be,
Yeah.
that's going to be...
So I got a list here, Ryan.
Okay.
Rungren, what do you think about... I feel like we should specify here, too. Some of these are not new settings, even like concerned of the old settings.
Okay.
They're just different places in the old settings
that
weren't available before. So like the first one that I have here is a Bear Toril, the planet in Forgotten Realms that the Mastica and Al-Qadim campaigns were set on. The Cradle of Life, as it were. You might know it better as Karatur.
Yeah. That would be an expansion to Forgotten Realms.
Right. I don't think that's what they're going to do.
Nah.
I think it's going to be a whole other setting.
I think it's going to be a whole other sphere.
But it would be really cool to see Karatur come back.
Oh, yes.
So I wanted to make sure that I brought it up.
Yes.
That's not a thing that we do very often, is talk about the weird offshoots.
Oh, man. Like I said, I'm sure. You got it. So how many are on the list?
It's quite a few.
Wow.
If we don't count the bits of other ones, it's like 12.
Well, I tell you what. So we're not going to count. Let's talk about the bits of the other one.
Yeah.
But we won't count them. So Karatur, definitely.
So
I love
Karatur was a good one there.
Great expansion.
Mystara is one I completely forgot about until I pulled up this list.
Yeah.
You might know it better from the subsetting, which is the Intercontinent, which is the Hollow World.
Mm-hmm.
That one is a really interesting... It's the Hollow World and the Known World.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting... And this one came out... Mystara came out in 1981.
Wow.
And it was a really interesting setting back in the day. Because you had the moons, you had the Blackmore, which is their like Greyhawk setting for it, which we'll get to Greyhawk in a little bit.
Not Richie?
Right. But it actually had...
Sorry.
No, you're good. There were actually D&D games, like video games made of Mystara. I don't know if you remember Shadow over Mystara.
Yes.
So...
Wow. Yes.
So the planet of Mystara consists of 3 principal landmasses. The Brune, the Scathar, and the Devania, as well as an island continent of Alphadia. And then when you got into the Hollow World, you had the interior of the planet, which honestly, if I was to do the setting, I would probably want to do both. But if I didn't get the choice, I would probably do the Hollow World.
Yeah.
Just because it's the more interesting setting.
Right.
The Hollow World inside the planet is like an inverse from the other side, and it's lit by the eternal red sun that is the core of the planet of Mystara, and it's super cool, right?
Yes.
Now, the only thing I would say is that Mystara, despite being extremely cool, doesn't have a lot of unique creatures to it. It is... They went, back in 81, they went, hey, what if we made another place like Forgotten Realms, but it's a planet?
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not part of Forgotten Realms, but
Right.
it also doesn't have a lot of unique stuff.
Wow.
The most unique stuff would be like the Isle of Dread. Maybe when you get into like the way the knights are set up, because it has like I don't know if you remember or not, but it has the Immortal Vanya that the Order of Knights is tied to. The Amerindians.
That I don't remember.
They were nation of Sind. There's a whole bunch of different nations in this world, but it's mostly humans.
Yeah.
It could be a really cool setting, especially if you went, hey, here's Mystara, but you can also put all the other races in it if you want, you know?
Right.
And just do like hey, everybody's basically equal for the sake of it.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I could really think of that maybe we would bring in from Mystara if we got to make the choice is the Savage Coast. That'd be a perfect adventure. When you get into the Savage Coast and everything going on there, there was an adventure from it called Red Steel back in the day.
Oh my!
That took place on the Savage Coast.
Wow!
And it was really fun. It was it was the first time I'd ever done ship combat in D&D.
Okay.
And so you could absolutely do something cool because remember, if any ships go down on Mystara, they hit the backside of the hollow world.
Yeah.
And so, depending on where you are, you might fall through.
Right.
So there's a lot of really cool stuff with Mystara from a setting perspective.
Did we inadvertently rip off a lot of that in our world?
I think so, without meaning to.
There's no way we meant to.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't said that.
I forgot all about it until I found it on the list.
Yeah, no. Exactly. Exactly. That's funny, though.
It is. The reason I don't think we're getting Mystara is because there's no new races in it.
Yeah.
And no new classes in it.
Yeah.
It would be so cool to get.
It would be nice to get, especially if they leaned heavily on the DM stuff that they're going to put in there. Since they don't have to worry.
Combat,
yes. Since they don't have to worry about new races. They don't have to worry, the political intrigue, you build that up.
Get Immortal Vanya and her knights,
Yeah.
Go all in on that. Go all in on the people that live in the inside of the hollow world,
Right.
It would be so cool, but I don't think it's the one we're getting.
Okay. As just before we move on from the next, I just want to say that would be a really neat surprise.
Yeah.
All right. So what you got?
So next up, past Mystara and the hollow world is Pelinor.
That's the Lord of the Rings settings, isn't it?
Yes. It's not the actual... So it's not Lord of the Rings. It's we couldn't get the rights to Lord of the Rings.
So we just named the game after the field.
Right.
Pelinor Fields.
But what they did with Pelinor is actually really cool.
Okay.
Because they went, hey, what if we built it around a city builder kind of thing? Where you're in this fantastical... almost Middle-earth world.
Right.
But your campaign is built around the City League and trying to build up the city. I think this one's almost a guaranteed not to happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool idea, for sure. And Pelinor came out in 1984.
Wow.
Al-Qadim is one we talked about along with Karatur.
Right,
It came out in 1992.
Yes.
It is the more fantastical part of Karadur.
Well, that one is, think of, Arabian Nights.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's
and
what that one was.
it has a bunch of spells and equipment that was unique to it.
Yes.
That would be really cool.
That was a desert setting, ancient Baghdad. That was a really cool setting.
I don't expect it.
It wasn't set in ancient Baghdad,
right.
But that ancient Sumer, the Babylonian.
I don't expect it to be the one we get. But
no, but that would be really nice to have because that's in Forgotten Realms.
Yep.
It's on that planet, just like Karatur.
It would be really nifty to get some of that, of those spells back.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember. One of them is it's not mold earth. It's like shift sand or something like that.
Yeah.
And it literally is just, hey, I'm fighting this guy. We're on the sand. I'm going to make the sand eat him.
Yes.
And I was like, heck yeah.
There's one, didn't you do like a wave and you could knock them prone?
Yeah, there were a lot of options with it.
What's weird though? Cool. We get all the djinn in the monster manual.
Yeah.
They don't have to put that. They don't have to go into much
there,
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be pretty cheap to add in. Next up is Birthright.
That was their night one.
Yes, and
that
this
was their Arthurian.
94.
Yeah. I never played that one, but I remember it.
It was set on the continent of Cerealia in the world of Avernus.
Yeah. Not Avalon.
Right. And Avernus comes up with, it's mentioned in some of the other planar style stuff. Avernus is a world that still exists. And a couple different DMs, including XP to level 3, use Avernus as a thing that they will bring in sometimes.
It's a good world. Like I said, it's that Arthurian world. So,
right. Not to be confused with Descent into Avernus.
Right, which is
That's
hell.
a different thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I remember that setting. There was a lot of D&D books that came out around that time.
Yes, and this one was centered a lot more on like bloodlines.
Yeah.
and Regency.
Yes.
Regency is a command that you get, an aura.
Yes.
Of, hey, if you're a king, you have Regency points.
Yeah. And yes. And there was that fake leather looking, the Knight's Handbook came out around the same time, I almost believe. Came out right. I remember that.
There are some races. Because the way that Birthright did it, humans were not humans. They were 5 different sub-races of humans.
Right.
That had developed and evolved differently. The Anurians were the Western European style humans.
Yeah.
The Brecht were individualistic and enterprising, mercantile style.
Okay.
The Kenasi, not Genasi, Kenasi,
Yeah.
are called the Cities of the Sun.
Hold on, wait a minute. No, it was in Neeson. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was like,
they were the more magical place.
yeah.
The Rejuric were the Druids in Scandinavian style.
Mm.
And the Voss were dedicated to the old god Vorin, but were lured away by the evil god Ezrai and fought at the Battle of Mount Daesmar.
Okay.
I played in the setting and don't remember them ever getting brought up once.
I remember it coming out. I remember the idea behind it was lineage, knighthood, things like that. But I never played in it or got to the lore of it or anything.
I feel like I missed out. The Voss sounds sick. There is one monster race that they had that we still don't have today. They had a bunch of the other ones.
Yeah.
The Orogs, which are a fierce militaristic race that live primarily underground and are at endless war with the dwarves and everyone else.
Are they kind of like the Urukai?
I would assume so. They don't have a picture on here.
Okay.
But my guess would be they are more of the orcish style.
Yeah.
Living underground. So maybe like troglodytes.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, and I have skipped some of the older ones that are bigger to try and talk about some of the shorter ones first.
Okay.
And even then, we're taking and giving them the time they deserve. You know?
Right.
Next up is the Council of Worms. This came out in '94.
I thought it was Adventure.
So it was an adventure, but it also had a setting based around the Ios Blood Isles.
Okay.
Where you could play as dragons.
Oh.
And the dragons' color substitute their race and their class.
Yeah.
With the addition of proficiencies like chanting. Because you're a dragon, you have access to chants in the Ios Blood Isles.
Yeah.
I don't think this is happening at all. But it's a cool idea, right?
Right.
Your whole party are made up of dragons and there are humans invading. That could be a really fun campaign, you know? I don't think the setting maybe is the right way to do that in this case. I think maybe make this an adventure.
Yeah, yeah.
But
yeah. And because I don't think you said the Isle of...
The Blood Isles.
Blood Isles.
You could easily put that in Eberron or in Forgotten Realms or...
Yeah.
Just drop that in, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next one then is Jakandor. And this was in '98.
Okay. I was probably playing a lot more Shadowrun then.
So
Magic the Gathering
Jakandor,
too.
there's not a lot about it because it was from the AD&D Odyssey line.
Okay.
So it was an attempt to have more island style
Oh.
archipelago.
Yeah.
But it is Jakandor is an island divided between the native Karanti, which are the magicians, especially necromancers, and the Nor barbarians. It's not a part of any specific world, and it doesn't have a full setting tied to it, but I wanted to give it a mention because I think the idea of necromancers versus barbarians is pretty sick.
Yeah. I actually have a Conan the Barbarian comic book that deals with that exactly.
Nice.
It is a barbarian versus Conan versus a necromancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump around a little bit more here because the next one is one that I also don't think has any chance of happening.
Right on.
It is Dragon Fist, which was like this setting made by Chris Promise. I don't know if you remember it when it was announced. Is like a wuxia ancient China style setting, known as Chang'o. And Chang'o didn't really have any full information about it for the most part. It was just kind of, here's a little bit of stuff. There was no book ever released for this. It was supposed to be released, and then instead was just put on the website way back when. But cool idea.
Yeah.
Not happening. But really cool idea. We also have Mahasarpa, which is that South Asian, sorry.
I was going to say, is that like an Indian?
Yeah.
Hindi
It was
setting?
made for 3rd edition. It never got a full book either.
Never played
just
third
like
edition.
Chris Promises. It was made by James Wyatt, and it was going to be added to the 3rd edition rulebook as a core setting, and then just didn't happen. But it had 7 kingdoms, options for different magic styles in there.
Okay.
And then some special items and new monsters, but we don't have any of that information anymore.
Meh.
So I wanted to just give it lip service, you know.
Absolutely.
Somewhere
is inspired by that.
Yeah.
You know.
The last 4 are the meatiest ones that I have pulled up. There are 3 more other than that I want to talk about.
Okay.
That I know you're going to have thoughts on, but these are the ones that I knew we wouldn't remember if I didn't pull them up.
Okay.
Ninteer Veil.
Nothing.
You might remember this one. No? This is the one from the 4th edition DMG. Okay, that's right. You never really messed with 4th edition.
Yeah.
So, Ninteer Veil was a sample given. So instead of just like giving you Forgotten Realms, they gave you Forgotten Realms and then gave you a sample of a different setting.
Okay.
And it wasn't a full, like, worked out thing, but it was one with great empires of different races, which were like the reverse of what you would expect. So instead of humans, elves, dwarves, the people running these empires are tieflings, drow, and dragonborn.
Yeah.
And they have enslaved the others, you know, and,
Yes.
and are making them work and everything. And it follows the Greyhawk deities, which is really interesting and really cool.
Okay.
And you would get points of light as you worked up trying to help people that could be cashed in to call in favors from the gods, which is a pretty cool idea. Yeah. You know? But again, it never got a full book. It was just that supplement added in there. Rokugan is based on the Legend of the Five Rings.
What?
Was a whole like setup that was going to be given. Unfortunately, much like many of the others, it never got its full book.
Yep.
Instead, when we got the Oriental Adventures Dungeons & Dragons supplement, almost all of it was rolled into that. So, because we didn't get the full thing, the base area of the world is the Burning Sands and the Ivory Kingdoms. The 2 main gods were, well, the goddesses and gods were Amaterasu, the Lady Sun, and Onotangu, the Lord Moon. Yeah. Very, very cool setup, but we didn't get a lot of focus on it, you know, because it kind of got wrapped into everything else.
Right.
But this is the first time that Kenku were introduced as a playable race.
Oh, that's cool.
So
nice little tidbit right
make
there.
Sure to throw it out there. It's also,
Absolutely.
we get the Yuan Ti today, Yuan Ti Purebloods, because the Naga that were in the Oriental Adventures.
Yes.
There were also the lost humans who had given themselves to Fulong, the evil will. They were a playable race, never really were much different from humans, you know? Just they had become evil. And there were the Nezumi, the Ratlings. That would be really cool to have back.
Yeah.
But I don't think Rokugan is going to get chosen, right?
That sounds familiar to me, though.
Oriental Adventures was pretty big when it came out, the full book.
Yeah.
But the Nezumi were a really cool way to do it. They were like rat people that basically had been kicked out of the rest of society because they were rats. And so they lived in like abandoned houses and made their own towns out of ghost towns.
Oh, that's cool.
It really nifty stuff, right?
That's a nice little back idea to give a good, I like that.
There's also the Zokujin, which are the copper goblins. Goblins that are copper and eat rocks.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now,
The more I say, the more you remember, don't you?
Well, it's not the more I remember that there's the tales of rock-eating goblins.
Yes.
And I would be terrible trying to explain it, but some of the picture, I don't know. It was just, it brought up some images, and I was like, okay, that's funny.
They also had ogres, and of course kitsune, the fox people.
Well, isn't this where we get the Oni?
So yes, the ogres that they had were the Oni that we have now. Right. We continued with Forgotten Realms ogres.
Right.
And so to keep these, they changed them into Oni.
Oni, gotcha.
They also had the Echelon, which were the sorcerer race.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't keep anything of this that I can remember. And Oracles, which I think also got left behind.
Yeah.
Here. But we also had Ghostwalk, which has kind of stuck around in the forms of Saltmarsh.
Okay.
Which is really interesting to me. This one was made to be, it was the first one. This one came out in 2003. The first one for 3rd edition that was meant to be its own setting.
Okay.
So while Saltmarsh is now like Forgotten Realms setting,
yes,
this was its own thing, and it didn't do super well.
Well, third edition, like I said, I didn't play it, but 3rd edition got off to a rough start.
It did, and
not as rough as 4th edition, but
right. This first book was not cheap, if memory serves. I think this first book was like $60.
Wow.
And it's like, man, with an edition we already kind of don't like.
Yeah, it's hard to put that money into it.
But you could play as a ghost, inhabiting your own body.
Okay.
After you died, which is pretty cool, you know? That was really the only like super cool idea that it had that was different from Saltmarsh.
Right.
The majority of what was in Ghostwalk eventually would find its way to Saltmarsh.
Interesting.
I have saved this one for last of the ones that we didn't already think of.
Okay.
When we mentioned this earlier, and that's Blackmore. This was the first campaign setting added to original 1st edition D&D. Came out in 1970.
So this is not the Blackmore you mentioned earlier.
No, this is OG Blackmore.
It came out when?
1970. Wow. So it technically, Blackmore existed as an idea before it was released.
Right.
It was the first big edition that they had made back in the day, made by Dave Arneson himself.
Wow.
And it's pretty interesting. It's more wargaming than anything else. Mm-hmm. It's based on Lord of the Rings meets Dark Shadows. And so it's going to be more Conan, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Because it's more wargaming, I don't think it'll happen.
Did you mean to say Dark Shadows?
I did, yes.
Okay. I was just checking.
Right. But 1975 was when the book fully released with all the complete version.
Yeah.
It also had the first campaign.
Okay.
Like the first written campaign, which is really interesting. But it didn't really add anything that we don't already have today. There were later editions of the book that would come out in like 2004 for re-releases and everything. Okay. But I will tell you the name of the modules because I think that these should be adventures that come back.
Okay.
Adventures in Blackmore, obviously, is the first one. Temple of the Frog.
Nice.
Is the second one. City of the Gods.
Okay.
And then the Duchy of 10. I want to know about the Duchy of 10. What is that? That makes me excited.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But
I like that. So technically Blackmore is the oldest expansion for Wow. That's cool. It's good to know. But
again, nothing that we don't already have. Now we get into the last couple, which are the ones that we know, right? Mm-hmm. Greyhawk, Spelljammer, Dark Sun, and Planescape. We didn't bring up Ravenloft earlier because Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft is about to drop.
Yes.
We want to read the book before we mention it, but Ravenloft is a very old setting as well.
It is a very old setting, but it's also, once again, it's off the Shadowfell, which is technically off Forgotten Realms. You get there through Forgotten Realms.
So, with which one of these do you want to talk about first? You want me to just pick one?
I just pick one.
Okay. Well, let's do it in chronological order then. Let's talk about Greyhawk.
Wow. This was probably out of the ones we're going to talk about. This is probably the one I have the least amount of knowledge of. Now, that's an interesting world, and I think I know a little bit about the world.
Yeah.
The idea behind it. You've got your gunslinger there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got quite a few things you can pull in from Greyhawk that would definitely be a completely different, wide open setting. You've got the just the world, because you live on the there's a reason it's called Greyhawk.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many things that I think that would bring in. I don't think they'll do Greyhawk.
Yeah.
But I would not be. That's another one. I wouldn't be disappointed if they
Right.
did. I think it's very viable.
Right.
But
so we should clarify. The reason we saved these is because these are the ones that have the highest chance as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
Dragonlance is basically a lock, and then the rest of these are the ones that could happen.
Yes.
So let me give you a little bit of fun info about Greyhawk.
Okay.
Since we're doing some fun trivia anyway. Greyhawk development started in 1972.
Okay.
Didn't actually finish till 2008.
Really?
So Greyhawk books came out,
Yes.
but they didn't finish the world until 2008, which is really interesting.
Insane.
I think that is because the first book came out in 1980.
Yeah.
But the setting wasn't done until 2008.
Well, was it? I'm thinking about how D&D used to be released for second edition. A lot of the settings, you get the box.
Yes.
And now that I think about it, that's all I ever remember seeing Greyhawk.
Yeah. So Gary Gygax was behind Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And so after his passing, it kind of just sat for a while. And then in 1991, they had Rick Swan said, "Hey, we should keep this going. It never got finished. We should finish it." And it took until 2008 to be able to get it together.
I wonder if they took the time and we're going back over maybe some of his notes he had, like Christopher Tolkien did with his dad's works.
Most
the ones,
likely.
that he edited, taking notes and trying to fill in the best he can.
Yeah.
I wanted that's really cool. I would, if I was asked that on a trivia question, I would have never been like 1985.
Yeah, right.
2008. Wow.
So Greyhawk is set.
So Greyhawk was finished,
right?
And the housing crisis happened.
Yeah, those two things might be connected.
Maybe they shouldn't release Greyhawk.
So Greyhawk is set on the world of Orth, or Earth.
Yeah,
I believe is how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's got a weird tilt that causes the seasons to be longer, which is probably the first big thing that would make it very different from a Forgotten Realms, for instance. There is a centralized dungeon, which is Castle Greyhawk.
Yeah.
But everything else, the way that Greyhawk is set up is everything is kind of built around that dungeon. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first ones that had you just running a dungeon for your first couple of adventures.
Right.
And you never got to the bottom right away. You had to come back in later and get deeper. But the Flenaeus,
I'm pretty sure I know where they moved that idea to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's is another big section, the Flenaeus. The 4 big continents. But realistically, this one of the ones we have left, despite those changes, is probably still the most like Forgotten Realms.
Just as far as the atmosphere of it?
Well, as far as the races and the things like that.
Well, even the atmosphere, because there was a module that came out for it was a Forgotten Realms one.
Yeah.
It was called The Ruins of Mithranor.
Right.
And that dungeon you're explaining in Greyhawk there, that kind of had the feel of it. You could go in and kind of mess around, but if you went too deep too quick, you were toast. Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think Greyhawk's going to happen, but if it does, I think one thing that we might get are some more rules for mounted combat to go with it.
And flying combat, I would think.
And flying combat, for sure. Because mounted combat was a big thing in Greyhawk. You had the tribes of nomadic horsemen. You had the Greyhawks themselves.
Yes.
You had quite a bit of that. And there also was a really interesting religious system where the bishops there was a college of bishops.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of the choices in the kingdom of Furiandi is the name of that kingdom. But But I think there's some cool stuff that could be added. But again, I don't think it will.
No, I don't think so.
Next up is Spelljammer.
I love Spelljammer. It was one of the ones I used to run a lot that my friends would get me to run.
Yeah.
In second edition.
I think it's got a good chance, too.
I think it does. The reason I don't think it will. I don't.
Right.
I'm running out. The argument against it. Let me put it that way. I think the argument against it is, you open up a lot.
Yeah.
With Spelljammers.
Oh, for sure.
And a Spelljammer. It'd be nice to have at least 2 or 3 set planes.
Yeah.
Because you kind of go, you're kind of going in the background between these. Now, Spelljammer itself,
yeah,
you have all kinds of stuff. You have the setting of space.
Right.
Your worlds are really unlimited. You can take that as far as you want to go.
Yeah.
But yet, as far as actual stuff that they've given you to give us Spelljammer, right now we've got.
It'd have to be a pretty thick book.
It would. And I think it would be. I think that's the argument. The argument for it is cool.
Oh yeah.
And there's the people who played Spelljammer. They have it holds a warm spot in their heart.
Yeah.
Spelljammer
originally came out in 1989 on my birthday.
I had the box set. I got it.
Really cool ship combat, right?
It was different.
Yeah.
It was really different because you had ship combat built up. In a couple of different modules that came out. And I do believe there was one. I'm pretty sure there was a book dedicated to it.
Yes.
In the 90s, but you had to now. You're pulling in another direction.
Yes.
You're not just going across the 2 planes. You've got 3 planes to go through. So you had added. It really built up the combat there, and of course the rules are a little bit different.
Right.
Fire is still a problem. In
space.
In fact, it's an even worse problem in space.
Right.
So it's just a really cool thing. And then and it had rules, for keeping the ship going. The Spelljammers themselves.
Yeah.
And Spelljammer is one thing you cast into it to get it going, but there was also the Death Jammer.
Yes.
And there were other things, other ways where like the illicit, because you got to get bit. Now I think about it, they really pushed kind of illicits here.
Yeah.
Because the last Baldur's Gate game, I was like, I don't know what I was expecting, but that wasn't it.
Right.
I was not expecting mind flayers.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to, I think that's going to give some points. Since I'm leaning a little bit more towards Spelljammer. Definitely Spelljammer over Greyhawk.
I also think Spelljammer is possible in the same way that Planescape will be when we get there.
Yeah.
Because it ties Forgotten Realms to Dragonlance.
True.
Because that's how you would cross the veil, right?
Yeah.
So it would make a lot of sense for it to be, hey, here's the new setting, and here's another new setting that allows you to connect them all if you want to.
Yeah.
Which technically you could do that with Greyhawk as well, but
right.
I do want to bring up some of the things. Spelljammer, in a lot of ways, is already in 5e D&D because the prime material plane, the whole system of the planes that we have, is because of Planescape and Spelljammer.
Right.
Those two go hand in hand in my mind.
That's a very good point, yes.
But I also think there are some interesting things in the setting that we don't have right now. Obviously, we don't have spaceships.
Right.
We don't have space freely. The crystal spheres are a thing that we don't have right now.
Right.
Which can have a whole planetary system in one,
Yes.
Which are really cool.
See, this is what I'm talking about. If you go through the DM's guide, you're going to get blurbs. Now, you won't get these exact names, except for maybe Greyhawk and others. But when it mentions it, you get a blurb.
Yeah.
A little paragraph that says, hey, that's about it. And, yeah, it'd be nice to have more.
Wild Space would be really cool to have back.
Yeah.
The Phlogiston.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, Death Jammers. Race-wise, Beholders were playable in Spelljammer.
Beholders were playable in Spelljammer. Also, I do believe we have the GIF as playable now.
The GIF are playable right now.
But there's no spot for them.
That's right.
Their spot is Spelljammer.
Spelljammer will bring them in.
Yeah.
I've got another one for you that people have been asking for that when I say it, you're going to go, of course. The Thri-Kreen.
Oh, as a playable right? Yes. Yep. We have them in the Monsters Manual. We don't have them as a playable right? Yes.
People have been asking for them for a while.
Well, see, in Spelljammer, any race could be made playable.
Yes.
Right. You could be the Mind Flayers. You could be. Of course, you remember before. Here's point against Spelljammer.
Right.
Is the psionics.
Yes.
We do not have psionics. In mainline D&D.
Right, and that'd be a whole thing you'd have to add in.
You can't have Spelljammer without psionics.
Right. So that's the big hit against it. That's a lot of work to put into.
Yes.
Just to add it in.
Yeah.
And we do have psychic damage, but we don't have 4E psionics.
Yeah, or with second editions that they were given, just like they had you got a whole book for psionics.
And honestly, I think it's past time we got psionics in 5E.
Yeah, well, I've seen
the Gith already.
Right.
Who should have access to it.
Yes. And there's touches of it. So, where
Illithids have a little bit. The Gith as a racial have a little bit.
Right. But it's not there with the stuff you could do, because I don't know how it was in later. In second edition, when they fleshed it out and gave you the book, psionics were on par with any other character. And they were doing their own thing.
Right.
They weren't a fighter that happened to have psionic. Or a wizard that happened to be, they had their own skills, their own abilities.
I know we've been going about this for a while, but I have a quick story to tell you.
Okay.
When I DM'd my first 5E adventure, Lost Mines of Phandelver, the 5E PHB was not, or the DMG was not out yet.
Okay.
The DMG came out a couple months after. And so I used my 4th edition DMG. And so I let one of the players be a psionic.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And that psionic was going on 4th rules in the 5th edition campaign and was killing everything. Yeah. But everybody was having fun anyway. But I just thought that was really interesting. One last race. I don't remember this race at all. And I played a lot of Spelljammer. Do you remember the Neogi?
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I can't picture. Yes, they're a big deal in Spelljammer, too.
Let me Google them.
The Neogi.
Because I do not remember that at all.
They are tied somehow to the big manta ray ship.
Oh, yes. I see it now, and now I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I guess in my mind, I went, that's a different kind of Thri-kreen, but no, they are very different.
Yeah.
They are a very different creature. So that's another one that could get added in.
Yeah.
I don't think that it will, but it could.
No. I think maybe they have to do a step up. They're going to have to do something to step and then do Spelljammer.
Yeah. And that step up might be the next one we're going to talk about, which is Planescape.
That would be a really good one to do that, to take that stuff with. Because in that, you could introduce the Spelljammer idea.
Yep, bring in psionics from one of the planes.
Yep. And you've got that would be I think Planescape will probably, of all the ones we're going to talk about, will probably be the best stepping stones the next after that. And in fact, it would probably be nicer if Planescape drops first. Right. And then we get Dragonlance.
Give people time to get used to Planescape, and then...
Yeah.
I also think Planescape has a really good chance because, like we said before, the cosmology of the planes is already in the DMG.
Yes, it is.
That's a thing that already exists as part of 5e. In a lot of my homebrew worlds, I use Planescape.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
That little section in there where from all that, when you have Planescape, you get a detail, you get to lay it out, and those, if they do that and they do it like they have in the past, when you get Planescape, it's a lot of stuff to go through.
Yes,
but as you get the flavor of each thing,
Absolutely. Planescape came out in 94.
Yeah.
Which puts it's actually after the other one that we're going to talk about, but I wanted to go ahead and go to it because, again, I think the two go together. If it came in, we already have the Prime Material plane. That's where Forgotten Realms takes place, and every other thing, basically. Yeah. But that would add us the inner planes of water, earth, fire, and air, which, again, a lot of people already use anyway. Yeah. Because elemental planes are in the DMG as well. Yeah. The ethereal plane, which is sick. The astral plane, which I use in all of my campaigns because I love the astral sea. and the Outer Planes, which have some of the coolest ones, including the Far Realm.
See, you can walk up. Planescape was great because you could walk around. Because you can go and do. If you have that book, you can go. You have all the information you need to take the characters. If your character's got 20th level in Forgotten Realm,
yep,
you know, you have another place to take them to give them adventure and conflict.
We already have some of these Outer Planes in books, adventure books anyway.
Yeah.
The Abyss, Acheron, Arcadia. There's a whole list here of them, obviously, like Pandemonium, Isgard, the Grey Waste of Hades, Gehenna, Mechanicus. They're all Limbo. They're all already in books. But the biggest one that I think a lot of DMs use that I would love to have a 5e version of, and it's why I want it to be Planescape so bad, is Sigil, the City of Doors. Sigil is my favorite location in all of Dungeons & Dragons. I adore the City of Sigil.
Yeah.
It's in, whether my players find it or not, it's in every single one of my campaigns. Theoretically throwing everything off the rails, right? But I don't care, because I love Sigil that much. But I would love to get a 5e version of Sigil, because I've been using the 4e version of Sigil for a very long time.
I understand.
For anybody who doesn't know what Sigil is the City of Doors. Any doorway in any part of any plane has a chance to open up there for a brief time. If you go through in the City of Doors, every doorway leads somewhere else.
Yep.
And that includes windows. That includes large barrels. If you can step into it, there is a chance if you're in Sigil, you will wind up somewhere else.
Right.
Which is such a cool thing. Sigil's also a weird place because it is free of violence completely, because the Lady of Pain runs it. And if you try to make violence in her city, you will know pain.
So it's nice interaction there.
But I could go on about Planescape forever. I think the points against it, right? We don't get any new races.
Right.
We don't get any new spells, really, unless we have some planar spells of like open plane.
Well, see, with the way they do 5e, you can because instead of giving races, which I really don't think they need to do.
We got a lot of them,
unless you're doing NPC races. You know, I don't think you need to give any players races in this stuff.
Right.
Okay. Except counting Kinder because it's specific.
Or if you give us Spelljammer, I mean, you might as well go ahead and give us Thri-Kreen.
Right. You put the races in that work there. But instead of that, now we have a detailed understanding of these planes.
Yep.
Can we get skills and feats?
Right.
That go along?
Planeswalker feat.
Yeah.
Allows you to more readily find your way back to a plane you've been to before.
You know, and things that go on those lines. And I think Planescape would be... I'm hoping these really work on the end game.
Yeah.
Past 12th level. Which Planescape would do more so than Dragonlance.
I just thought of a spell I would love to... I'm going to homebrew this spell into my next campaign.
Okay.
Think Leomid's Tiny Hut.
Yeah.
But instead, 2 levels higher, 6th level spell. Open the door, and you get to go to Sigil.
Oh, yeah.
But you might not come back.
You're going to have to tie something to the Lady of Pain.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that'd be like a gift that she could give you, or a boon of now you can go to Sigil.
I think the cost of casting it should be painful.
Right. And I think the real negative, too, is, hey, you're safe. You can shop as much as you want. Time passes differently here. But you also, if you spend too long, might not go back where you came in.
Right. You cannot prop open the door.
Right. I think that'd be a really fun way to play around with that. But that's really all you get. You know, there are other factions, there are other planes, but for the most part, that's your big thing. The last setting that we have to talk about, also the one that I would love to have, but don't expect to happen, is Dark Sun.
Yeah.
And I wanted to save this one for last, because Dark Sun, I think both of us have a special attachment to Dark Sun.
Well, just because Dark Sun is the first campaign setting that went, this is brutal.
Yeah, this is different.
Yeah,
this isn't just D&D in a different place.
No, this is a harsh world. Mm-hmm. It's so harsh. In fact, you're going to have to roll your stats differently if you hope to survive.
Yes.
It's so harsh, in fact, that your hit points and stuff is going to be configured differently.
Yes.
you cannot make a regular character here. Yes, it's a different way. And I would love to have it, but I don't think they're going to delve into it.
Yeah, I think if we ever get Dark Sun, it will be later. But for the sake of information, Dark Sun came out in 1991.
Yes.
And it ran until 1996, which was the last time that a new Dark Sun book came out, which makes me sad.
Well, like I said, they to play in Dark Sun, you change a lot of the core rules.
Yeah.
And I think for some people maybe that didn't feel comfortable.
I will say the 4th edition version came out in 2010.
Yeah.
But it didn't change a lot from the 2nd edition version.
Okay.
So it was more of just a republication. The world of Dark Sun is Athos. It's a devastated world. Mm-hmm. Magic has run amok and ruined this world. City-states controlled by power-mad sorcerer kings. Because of this, Dark Sun is not just D&D. Like we said, it's survival.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you have enough water. You got to make sure you have enough food. And I think it would be perfect for the kind of player that enjoys that style of campaign where they have to manage how much food they have and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dark Sun would be so cool for that.
You know what I think I would love to have? I think I would just, as it hit me real quick, love to have Dragonlance, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think rather than the second classic setting for this year, give me a second DM's guide.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Get detailed, make it big, make it detailed.
Yeah.
And so that way, when the next worlds you put out, you've got information to go off of. If I have all my naval information on the ships and everything, or, down to here,
right,
even flying ships perhaps, then I've got a lot of stuff prepared.
Absolutely.
That they don't have to go into as much when they're building the worlds down the line.
Very true.
Now, they're not going to do that.
Right. I wanted to say, too, another point for Dark Sun. Great chance to bring in psionics, because magic's not so much
That's
a thing.
another one.
People don't like magic in Dark Sun.
True.
Magic makes people really uncomfortable.
Yes.
Divine gods don't exist in Dark Sun. You can be a paladin or cleric still. You just have to be worshiping one of the crazed god kings.
Right.
But psionics is like the big thing in Dark Sun.
That's true. I was late, and it may be it's probably bigger in that than it is in Spelljammer.
Yeah.
And I was building up how big it was in Spelljammer. But yeah.
Well, because the difference is in Dark Sun, everybody has latent psionic abilities.
Yes.
Literally every human, every orc, all of it.
Yes.
Now, there are some things I wanted to bring up when it comes to races, because a lot of the races have also been removed.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a full, not to seem reductive of the others, this is its own setting.
Yeah.
This is not a D&D setting.
It's a limited setting.
This is Dark Sun.
Right. Well, everybody acts differently on Dark Sun.
Yes.
You don't have the noble elves.
Right.
You have bloodthirsty killer elves,
So, the list of races, elves, dwarves, half-elves, halflings, humans, moles, Terrans. I don't know if they were Terrans or not, but those are dinosaur people.
Yeah.
Thrycreen.
Yeah.
Of course, and little fun fact, it's the first time Aarakocra were a playable race. Was Dark Sun.
I thought they came from Greyhawk, but you didn't mention one of those, did you?
They came from Dark Sun, which is really cool.
Wow. 5d4 stats on the Aarakocra?
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
And again, Thrycreen would be really interesting to have. They also had like the Drays, which eventually became the Dryads as we have them now.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something you have to make playable. I think if the playable race for this is Thrycreen and maybe Terran. Look, I'm just going to put it this way. If you want to get people to buy a book, tell them they can be a dinosaur man. They're there.
Right.
Then they'll stay for the mantis people. But they'll come for the dinosaur people. And then the mantis people will be over there with their quick crit. And then guess what?
Fight's on.
Yeah. I'll never forget dying in my first Dark Sun session to a double crit. Because that Thrycreen crit once and then crit a second time.
Wow.
Quick crit, man. It's really good.
So, that kind of covers, obviously, all the ones it's not going to be.
Yeah.
And kind of goes to if you're gonna put it and stamp it down today on this podcast, what are the two that are coming out?
I'm gonna go Dragonlance, Planescape.
Yeah.
If I was to add two, that's the two I would add.
Yeah. I find it at the end of the day, those different arguments here. I find it hard to go any other route.
Yeah,
I really do. I think Planescape would be so much more beneficial coming out, especially before Spelljammer.
Yeah, because you do Planescape this time, you do Spelljammer next time, and then after that, you can add whatever you want.
Absolutely. So I think like I said, that's my prediction too.
Yeah,
is those two, Dragonlance and Planescape.
That wasn't my prediction when I sat down in this chair.
True,
but it is my prediction now.
Yeah, same here. Except for the Dragonlance.
Yeah,
one.
Dragonlance was a lock.
Yeah, I think so. All right, man. Is there anything else you want to add?
Not really. I think we covered. It was really fun to go down the rabbit hole of
that. Really was, man.
Settings.
And especially when you start you're calling out dates, and I'm putting them in my mind because the early '90s I played a lot of D&D.
Yeah.
And seeing when that stuff kind of fell, and you'd see them, and I remember, like I said, they came in box sets. You have the book or two,
right?
And usually a good map. Yeah, man. Great
if
stuff.
you had to pick one playable race of the ones that we talked about possibly being added, which one do you choose?
Out of
any of those campaign settings.
Oh, wow.
Because honestly, I'm going Thri-Kreen.
Yeah.
There's something just weirdly cool about the Mantis people.
Yeah, it is.
I want them in my games. I want a stat block for them,
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a tough one. I'm not... Because out of all of them... Because we have so many now.
Yeah.
So it's really... the Thri-Kreen, the Kender do bring a little bit something different.
Yeah.
I think I'd really kind of like to go off the wall.
Yeah.
And get a Mind Flayer. Yeah. As a possible player race.
Well, if they add Spelljammer, then there you go.
Yeah, and then because if you're gonna run,
I forgot about Playable Beholder.
Yeah, Playable Beholders. Yeah, but I think it would, because the Mind Flayers are interesting. It would be a fun way to run a so-called evil campaign.
Yeah, but
really, it's a conquest survival campaign.
Yeah,
they do horrible, they're brain eaters.
Right.
But really, from the aspect of that's what it is.
Yeah, they're just trying to live.
Survival conquest. They just happen to be.
Their living cost humans their lives.
Right.
It's the side effect of it.
Yeah.
It's like the aliens. They're not like from Alien, the Xenomorphs.
Yeah.
They're not inherently evil.
Yeah,
they're just doing their thing.
Yeah, we're just cattle.
We just don't want to die.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I think I'll go with that one. Okay. But that's in my mind. It's going. I could run a fun campaign or at least a couple of sessions. Yeah. Let my players. All my players are Mind Flayers, but then you got to have the psionics. Yeah. And in.
That's I think of all the things we talked about tonight, that's what I want most is psionics to be added. Because I'll put it this way. If they add psionics, I can add everything else.
That's true. Now, I think maybe the reason for psionics is that it's going to be hard to balance psionics.
Yeah, they're really powerful.
5e, it was. There's not as many limitations in 5e on powers and stuff and the way characters go.
Psionics didn't have spell slots before, really, but that might be the easiest way to do it. Is your psionics cost a slot? You spend a sonic point, yeah.
Yeah, and you could spend a certain amount of them, right?
And you got a certain amount per short or long rest. But it might be easier to just go spell slots.
Yeah. So what we're thinking, Dragonlance, Planescape. Our wish would be a psionics book.
Yeah.
A psionics book. Or I would really like a second DM's guide.
Yeah.
To really flesh out.
Go ahead and just throw Sigil in there. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything.
Well, everything to me in the DM's guide, it feels like a brief outline.
Yeah.
You get some cool stuff for chases.
Right.
But, you don't, get a feel for running the chase.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I don't know, maybe more on that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of idea stuff.
I think another DM's guide could give a lot of good information about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think so. And it'd be, dude, just give us give us a magic item book.
Yeah.
How handy would that be?
Yeah, a magic item compendium would be great.
That's what we need. That's what DMs need. We need some compendiums.
Yeah.
And dadgummit, I'll spend the money for them too.
Yeah, I would too. All right. Well, I think we've pretty much wrapped that up.
I think so. That was probably our most informative.
Yeah. That's the most information we dished out.
Yeah.
If you made it this far, please comment Playable Beholder in the comment section down below.
That's a good one.
And until next time, I've been Trey.
I've been Rungren.
We've been the Full Spectrum D&D podcast. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that D&D has to offer.